Welcome to Chinese Historical Society of America. We've been around 63 years. Initially collecting a lot of things. We were all volunteer organization until 2001 when we acquired this beautiful building. It's a Julia Morgan historic building. We didn't realize how much it costs to keep up a historical, more than 100-year-old building. And then we started having staff. And so in some ways, I like the old ways of going back to all volunteers. My board chair there might disagree, but I'm bringing it up because you're all part of the community. If you're here, you're really part of the community, pretty hardcore to come to listen to these. Our capacity is only 41 seated, and it always gets booked up. When we didn't charge, 40% of the people don't show up, and that's one reason why we charge. So people do show up, and we try to make it up with food. So you should stay at 2:30. We have one more hour. Stay to 3:30 and have food there for the next hour. We have to close up at 5, so definitely 5 minutes before we'll kick you out. So that's basically it. Am I close to 2:30? How much time? 2 minutes. Okay, it's going to be recorded, and we normally play it back. But if we tell you that, you might not have spent the money to come in person. But we think it is important to meet in person and share some food together to develop these relationships. So, we have people there. We're only accessible this floor and one floor up. The rest, we're not ADA, so we don't use those space. So the space is limited in this way, but it's perfect for a talk like today. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Sonia Ng right here. She's our speaker today. She's been involved with the U.S. for a long time and Hong Kong. The exhibition is in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Museum of History. And it took 5 years or more? 10 years. And millions of dollars. I stopped at $3 million asking. So this is a major exhibition. Most exhibition for Chinese American is 100, 200,000. That would be a lot. Most of them. Then we have Bruce Lee upstairs. That was $1 million. And a lot went to the infrastructure, stopping leaks and so on. We have the Exclusion, Inclusion exhibition by the New York Historical Society about a decade ago, and it was exhibited here. That was $2 million. So it's very costly, but they're spending a lot more than that. And so I think Sonia's probably the one of very few that can handle both Hong Kong and the U.S. because she spent more than 20 years looking at collections here like Hanford before the fire. Luckily, she already did all the study before the Hanford fire. They lost about half of their artifacts, but because of this exhibition, she got Hong Kong to refurbish some of the smoke damage, water damage things. And also with Chee Kung Store in Fiddletown, she's very close to them. Auburn, a lot of what I know about Auburn is from Sonia. She has her education master's degree from Toronto, right? University of Toronto.
Yes.
Toronto, correct. And then her Ph.D. from University of Hong Kong. Chinese University of Hong Kong. So she's pretty good on both sides. In the relationship of U.S. and China and Hong Kong, we tend to forget that this relationship goes back to the Ming Dynasty. with the discovery of silver in Mexico and Peru, and that galleon trade that the Spaniards had, it allowed China to be a market economy without a coin or metal that you can base your money on. You can't have a market economy. You can't do enough business. But because of the New World silver, half of it went to China. And it allowed China to expand. And this is the 1560s to 1815. Then when America had the revolution, we're celebrating that next year, 250 years. The galleon trade went for 250 years uninterrupted. But for America, after the American Revolution, America was bankrupt, no money, owed a lot of money. And England, which the US just beat, would not let America trade with any of the colonies. So the only exception was China. The major exception was China. So in 1784, we sent the Empress of China to China, came back the next year wildly successful. So if you look at the old money in the East Coast, mainly earned from China trade, trading opium from Turkey with China. And it was this old money that financed our factories, our infrastructures, especially for the Forbes family. John Murray Forbes, he was very close to Hao Kwa, who was in charge of the 13 ministers that traded with foreign countries. He was the wealthiest man in the world, the Elon Musk of his days. But he was a bit nicer. He liked John Murray Forbes. John Murray Forbes went to China when he was 18. In 2 years, he made enough money to retire. So he came back to America. Before he came back, Hao Kwa gave him a lot of money. Some says $1 million, some says 200. But it was a lot of money, equivalent to hundreds of millions, for him to invest in the U.S. So when John Murray Forbes came back and said, how am I going to spend this money? He decided the future was railroad going west. He bought up all the railroads around Chicago with this money. He built factories to build railroads and railroad cars. And all the new railroads west of Chicago, he started building. So the Chinese financed the railroad before building the railroad in the 1860s. We forget this. So the Chinese were already investing here that early, and then come the 49ers. 90,000 people came. We have nothing here. Prior to that, we only had 1,000 people, non-Native Americans, living in California. And all of a sudden, we have 90,000. There were no farms, no manufacturing, no lumber yard. How did these people survive? We think maybe the East Coast, well, before the Transcontinental Railroad, there wasn't this ability to ship things here. We relied on Hong Kong mainly and China. Most of the things came through Hong Kong because the British took over Hong Kong 1841 and developed it by 1848-49. And so they shipped over the sheds that the miners lived in, a lot of food, your coffee, butter, sugar, flour, rice, all this, they shipped here. And the Chinese were the middlemen. And even the houses that they lived in, we know in one instance, they shipped over 17 of these shacks, these wooden shacks, that the miners lived in, and many of the buildings in San Francisco were these buildings from Hong Kong, including the foundation for Old St. Mary's here, and all the curbs, granite curbs for San Francisco initially came from Hong Kong. Quarry Bay that we have in Hong Kong. So there's all this relationship, including if you need to wash your laundry, until the Chinese started their first laundry in 1851, If you want to do your laundry, you send it back to Hong Kong. 4 months to get it back, $8 a dozen. So the relationship goes that far back, and Sonia is going to get much deeper of this relationship between Hong Kong and the West Coast. Thank you.
First of all, I have to thank CHSA for inviting me and the leadership team that come to attend. Now, before I go into my talk, I want to show you a video to start.
Sonia, a little closer.
It's a silent film. So many of you may have been very familiar with the Pacific Telephone Exchange, right? Mm-hmm. And this is a historical document showing the operators, how they work, and how telephone worked. I show this film not because to tell you the story or because the film is interesting, because of Chinese Historical Society of America. Look at this, right? This is a picture from 1909 when they started to build the buildings, 745 40th Street, Washington Street. The building started to operate. Look at this. This is this, and we borrowed from Chinese Historical Society. And we put on a special section shown here of the telephone exchange. But we show this not because it's historical in San Francisco. Every exhibit, every item we borrow, we have a reason why we borrow it. Not because it's old, not because it's unique. We have a story behind them, we could borrow it. Oh, sorry. Look at this. This is the last show I show you, a section of Pacific telephone exchange. That section is part of the high ceiling hall, one of the sections, telling people the popular vocations that Chinese people came to this country. So in the very beginning, we have the gold mining, and railroad building, fishing, agriculture, laundry, and then we come to the Pacific telephone exchange. Because what? In the 19th century, most people came were men, working hard labor, except the Chinese merchants. But in the late 19th century to early 20th century, the first generation American-born Chinese came out. because they didn't have language barrier. So they started to go into non-blue collar jobs. And the girls, American-born Chinese girls are clever. Remember memory very good. They have to remember up to thousands of numbers, because at that time you call like this. I don't go into it, right? So we show this, and we put this in this hall by the end of the, we call it popular vocations. And then we end up into a new era. Chinese started to go into non-hard labor world. Okay, these are the 4 major items we borrow from the Chinese Historical Society here, and I would, because I talk here for the Chinese Historical Society, therefore I would elaborate more on their loan items to us. Now, a very brief introduction about the museum. This is a museum, one of the 6 largest museums, but all funded by, it's a public museum funded by the government. So David, thank you for telling. This exhibition from basic research, they commissioned me to do basic research. I have done 2 basic research in order to decide whether we should have an exhibition. Started in 2013. And this is the museum, outside of the museum, and this museum was closed for revamping for 3 years. Before the closing, every year we have about 1.2 million viewers annually. But after the closing, we are expecting 1.5 to 2 million for the first year. So it's widely exposed. And a nutshell, the gallery of this exhibition covers more than 8,000 square feet. And we have 260 plus exhibits items, and over 170 were borrowed from California, from various places. And I'm glad many of our loaners are present today, and I will explain a little bit more later. And the items from California, 70 of them have never been exposed publicly. Because for say David went to Hanford, I was the one who helped them for almost 20 years, going into the basement, open the boxes one by one. And also Fiddletown, just now David mentioned, they have the storage in the archive, but nobody knew what they are, because nobody can read Chinese or have the background to know what the item was. Until 2014, I started to help them with their historian, Elaine Sobers. So why these artifacts, 70% were never been disclosed. Now, the exhibition theme is called Sojourning in Hong Kong and the Lives of Overseas Chinese in California. But today, I thank David for giving us such a good background between California and Hong Kong. So today, I plan, in fact, to focus in California and touch upon Hong Kong, because I don't have time to elaborate the entire exhibition. I just get the essence of the life of Chinese in California in history with our exhibition, with our exhibits. So we call it Sojourning in Gold Mountain. And as I see, many of our audience today, in fact, are expert in American Chinese history here. But for the sake of the public, why we call Sojourning? Because started from the gold rush, Chinese people influxed into California. Not because they want to immigrate to this country, not like today. They just wanted to come and make money and send money back, and the dream is, I got rich, fada, and then I go back home, right? That's the ultimate. Therefore, this two statements, this is from Orofield's altar, a temple altar. Not many people were aware of that. It's on top of the middle of the altar. See, 黃金右手，指日船動, especially the next one, 指日船動 means counting the days to go home. Why? They didn't intend to immigrate. But the term immigrate and emigrate became one of the, well, I would say, reason for, excuse for discrimination. Because we, Chinese people, came here as emigrants. We seek for work. Wherever there's work, we came, right? But the mainstream newspaper and the mainstream society, they said the Chinese immigrants. Therefore, one of the attacks to Chinese people, they cannot be a good citizen of this country. They immigrated here, they bring the yellow disastrous. They don't learn English, or they couldn't learn good English. So you see, just the concept, immigrant and emigrant, create a misunderstanding between cultures. So very quickly, David had explained very well the background. So why we pick Hong Kong? Of course, number one, if it is not related to Hong Kong, the History Museum of Hong Kong would not pay so much to hold such an exhibition. It must be related to Hong Kong. So we just have a figure, the middle one. Sorry, I haven't get it. In this period of time, I don't know, but we just have a statistic in this period. Of course, we have many statistics. See, 6.3 million Chinese came through Hong Kong to come to this California. And Hong Kong was almost the only way, only in-between place that they can come, right? So why California? Of course, I don't need to elaborate because of the gold discovery. Now, people warn me, don't put so many words in your PowerPoint. People will be distracted. But I really want to show this because this is very important. Why I propose to the museum to have this exhibition and why they accept it. Because we have some balanced perspective, which were kind of misunderstood by, general. Number one, the term coolies, victims of coolie trade, is an overly generalized label for our immigrants in the 19th century and the immigrants after 20th century. Because Chinese people started to adventure overseas from the late Ming Dynasty. And they first went to Southeast Asia. Of course, there were poor people seeking for jobs, but you imagine in the 17th century, 18th century, you don't have money. How you can get on a boat? Who carry you to Malacca and all these Southeast, almost all merchants. And then when we have a colleague whose research is in the Southeast Asia immigrants, Chinese immigrants. Why immigrant in Southeast Asia? Because you are so middle class, lowest class in China, you sell your house and you went to Southeast Asia. With that money, you can buy a big mansion, marry several local girls as wife and concubine. And we have record that Chinese in the mid-Qing dynasty, they bought an island in Southeast Asia, all right? So it's kind of special immigration. They went to Southeast Asia. Many were very rich. And then when they settled in Southeast Asia, they started their business, like the plantations, and they hire Chinese labor to go to work. But they all get their labors from their friends, relatives, clans. They won't abuse them. Of course, it's not exclusive, right? If you abuse them, if they die, who work for you? So the scenario in Southeast Asia is very different. But on the other hand, I tell you later about the Cuban. And then the second concept we want to deliver is the vast majority of Chinese migrated to California, volunteer immigrants. More and more we have evidence revealed that we can say that, and more scholars, very solid scholars, have that conclusion gradually in the past like 30 years. And then the last one is we want evidence. Now I'm a historian, I belong to the school. Without speculation, you have evidence, you have artifacts, then you tell the story. Therefore, we want to show you the artifacts in order to show the history. We don't, well, of course we interpret it, but you make the decision. When you see these artifacts, and we collect all these artifacts to reveal, especially in the late 19th century to the early 20th century, Chinese living in California, from big city Daifao, San Francisco to Faozhai, the small towns. So that's our perspective. Now, several of my friends had visited our gallery. This is the gallery layout. We have 12 sections according to the timeline of history. So, I just flip over. Let me take you through our gallery. Now, this is the foyer of our gallery. And on this side, it's not yet our gallery. This is outside of a gallery that to show what I have just talked about. Different times, different time frames, and different locations where Chinese people ventured from the late Ming Dynasty to today. And the plan was, after California, the Museum of History would put on shows of history of Chinese in Southeast Asia, in Canada, in Australia. But as you know, everything is so unpredictable today. So we really don't have an exhibition follow us. And good for us, because our exhibition was planned for 1 year. And now at least we have 2 years, because no one is following us. Okay, so we go into this is the entrance of our gallery. Suppose, see this, water. We get on the boat and we go to Gamsan and go to Go Mountain. On the two sides, on this side, we have several illustrations from the Pacific Steamship Company archive. So you can see these Chinese are quite odd because they don't know how to draw Chinese images. But it's not ugly. And in fact, they beautify the scenes, like the white men would share their food to Chinese, and the Chinese were eating happily their Chinese food in the cabin, and also they play Chinese music, and also there's a priest to hold the Sunday service, and the Chinese were very enthusiastic listening to the priest, which we know is not true. But because Chinese were their customers, so at that time, it's more objective when they portray Chinese images. Then on this side, we have the Chinese shoreline. All these business and the ship, the piers on this side. So we go into here, the more we go into it, the more we enter the Chinese exclusion era. Now, before we go to the exclusion era, I have to tell some framework of our display. We have 5 reconstructed display settings, and I will explain to you one by one a little bit later. And we have 4 interactive modules, and it became very popular because, for example, one of the module we show how the Chinese go to the Wuiguan, the Huiguan, to get the 出港票, the departure tickets, right? So first you have go to that, blah, 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 blah. And then we have another module to show the Huiguan, the Chinese Association, how they adjudicate the dispute among Chinese ourselves. So this is very hard to show by just pictures, so we make the module. We have 4 modules, and then look at this, right? So in fact, along these vocations by Chinese towards the Pacific telephone exchange by American-born Chinese ladies, all we have audiovisual in 3 languages, English, Cantonese, and Mandarin. So if you go in here, you push the button, you can hear about the history, brief history of boat planning, the railroad building, all right? And then we have 13 videos presenting, I admire my co-curator. He's the curator of the Museum of Hong Kong Museum of History. He's very good in finding all these historical documents, and they became very attractive to our viewer. I show you some later, right? Okay. I'm going to show you one of the 13. Now, you saw one of the 13 that I just showed you in the beginning, the telephone exchange. And now, the second item we borrow from CHSA. This is the Bowl of Rice movement. As you know, the Bowl of Rice movement was to support home country, China, to fight against Japanese invasion, right? This movement started in San Francisco in 1938 and spread out to many Chinese diaspora regions, including Hong Kong. Hong Kong started the Bowl of Rice in 1941. So this rare video documentary, so this is Zhonghua Zhongwuiguan, CCBA. You see people donate money, and this is the banner we borrowed from CHSA. It's the same principle why we borrow this, because we want to tell people, the Chinese community, when home country faced crisis, disastrous, national invasion, the Chinese overseas are very keen in rendering supports. Therefore, we have this. I will show you where we put this later, okay? Chinese exclusion era. The highlight, of course, is Angel Island. Everybody's familiar with that. So we created a section of Angel Island, borrowing all the photos and documents in the archives to create this. And we created 2 interrogatory rooms. And we have 2 cases. It's not interactive, but they cast whenever who speak. Then you know who's speaking by casting spotting light. Basically, is this the entrance? 2 inspectors and 1 stenographer and 1 interpreter. So we picked 2 cases. 1 case was a wife. He's a real wife. He's not paper wife. But she answered wrong 1 question. She's denied. But fortunately, her husband is very persistent. She appealed. Therefore, she became the longest detainee in Angel Island for 2 years. But she won. She entered. And this case is interesting, okay? His name is Lai Bing. Lai is the surname. But in fact, he's not Lai Bing. His surname is Mak something, don't remember the name. So one of the interesting questions, he's the paper son. He gave false statement, right? And when the inspector, they separate, the father and son, did you have dog at home? No. No, your father said you have a dog at home. And this guy is so smart, with the blink of the mind. Oh yes, we used to have it, but before I departed, we ate it. You know who this gentleman is? He's the father of our godfather of Chinese American history, Him Mak Lai. If Lai Bing, Mr. Mak, didn't come with the paper son status, we won't have him Mak Lai later. Is it interesting? It's real case. We depict, they were asked numerous questions, but we depicted 5 questions and real questions. All right, and also we exploded some of the Mauzi, the cat sheets, the prompting paper. The father and son have to remember the same facts by memory. So in China nowadays, we rarely could find this prompting paper because they have to remember it and they carry it on the ship. But before they get ashore, they have to throw it away. So it's hard. But we found a lot. I think in the Historical Society and in Angel Island, you have quite a number of this kind of paper. Sorry. Here, see? It's very meticulous. See, where in hometown, on the left hand, you said on the left hand side you have 2 rooms. Which room you stay? They ask the same question to the father and the son. If you answer wrongly, they deny. All right? And this became very popular, and we started to have some feedback surveys from the viewers. Angel Island attraction number 1. And I tell you the number 2, okay? So another we said we have 5 recreated scene. This is the Chukki store from Fiddletown. We borrow many artifacts, original and very invaluable, because they hold they hold the earliest, the oldest artifacts and document. I can elaborate a little bit more. So in this setting, you see a typical Chinese general store in the 19th century. In fact, trace back to the gold rush era. Almost all the same, because they sell groceries, dry food, but very typical. They have a corner to operate gambling. And also they sold opium, of course, right? And most important, they sold Chinese medicine because Chinese doctors were very much in demand. You remember in those era, Chinese people did not trust Western doctor or Western medicine. When they came here, they work on mines, they work on railroad injury, and accidents were very common. So no matter is the Chinese herbal store or a typical Chinese general store or some Chinese medicine. This is very sad. We construct the scene of the Guandi Temple, Guandai Miu. It was built in 1884. Both Himalai and I thoroughly searched for every artifacts before the fire. Of course, Himalai earlier than myself, and then Himalai found the latest item is 1886, but I found another one, 1884. So this is one of the 6 surviving Chinese temple built in the 19th century on its original location, original site, in the original building. Only 6 of them. This is one, and it was burned. I won't elaborate. I would tell more if I have time by the end of this talk. And also, Preservation Society representative, they purposely come to this talk. But this morning they told me that the train was delayed. They are coming, but they will be late. If you are interested, they will stay behind and we can, talk with them. So we have this, including even the altar. This is bronze. And I only want to tell you one story that touched my heart, and I think it touched your heart too. This is a portrait of Guan Gong, the Guandai, right? And in the 18th century, all the statues of the deities were made of clay or mud. By early 20th century, all falling apart, without the arms, the head drop off. So the more prosperous temples like Marysville, Pakai Temple, they replaced it with statue. But for the more remote, not too prosperous towns, they replaced it with paper or fabric hanging scroll. So this is a hanging scroll. We believe it was replaced in the 1930s. So in 2018, when the curator from Hong Kong and myself, and I have to thank one very good friend of mine, Mr. Roland Hui. He helped us in duty visits to search for the artifacts. And he can tell you how difficult to get all these things. So in 2008, everything is not burned. So in the temple, we saw this scroll is falling apart, very brittle. So we advised the Preservation Society, you better get it down and get it conserved before it really fell. you cannot repair it. So they listened. So they have this hanging scroll repaired. But they didn't have time or chance to hang it back. Then came the fire. Therefore, this scroll was saved. So now showing in our exhibition. But the altars are damaged and is conserved, repaired, treated by the Hong Kong Museum of History. As a Chinese, both in Hong Kong and here, I am grateful. Because, you know, even for the Chinese Historical Society, you cannot afford to pay to conserve such an artifact, right? So this is wonderful. The dragon became the icon of the exhibition. We didn't expect it. And became so popular. This is a recreated scene. We say, we must talk about Hong Kong, right? Hong Kong goods and the lives of Chinese in America. In fact, in those days, when you ask the old-timers, like Dingyi or CCBA here, they have a lot of old-timer in CCBA. When you ask the 老人家, the elderly, where this come from? Hong Kong, everything come from Hong Kong. Halfly true, halfly false. Because the goods were shipped mostly from Hong Kong. Yes, in the late 19th century to the early 20th century, there are cargo ships from Guangzhou, between San Francisco and China. But they're smaller. And Hong Kong is a big trading post, entrepot already. The ship is big and the cost is cheaper. So many of the products, even made in China, it went through Hong Kong and shipped from Hong Kong. Of course, sometimes they change the label to Hong Kong brand, all right? And then many of them were made in Hong Kong, including this one. We borrowed from Historical Society. Well, we have so many banners, shop signboards, couplets we found in California. Usually they don't have the maker where it was made, but the better ones, the more expensive ones, were from Hong Kong. We have the Hong Kong still here. So this is the signboard of our general store in San Francisco, Chinatown, in the early 20th century. We did some research, but it's collected by the Chinese Historical Society. That's why we borrowed this. And the dragon. Now we talk about the dragon. Oh, before I forget, this is from Chinese Historical Society. Because Chinese, wherever they go, they eat Chinese food, right? Practice Chinese daily life. So all these, you can tell, are daily necessities, from food to stationeries to candies and everything were from Hong Kong. And the dragon. This is the dragon used by Bok Kai Temple in Marysville for their Bomb Day Dragon Dance. These dragons served from 1881 to 1831 to 1983 or 84, I don't remember exactly. It was made in Hong Kong, very special. When we borrow it, why we borrow it? Because the curator, and I saw this, Roland was there, right? Oh, Hong Kong made. And then we go into it, so beautiful. It's very different from the other dancing dragon we saw. More simple, right? When we ship back to Hong Kong, the Hong Kong History Museum spent 7 months to restore. Only section is 150 feet long. We only borrowed this part, and that's it. And they spent 7 months to restore the dragon. And the dragon stunned all our conservator. And eventually, they have to hire, outsource a master, the third generation of this Gam Yok Lau, the maker. It closed in the 1970s, but all this generation they spread to other shops, right? They outsourced a master to come to repair the dragon. So if after this talk, if you are interested, I have a film about 1 minute about the restoration of the dragon. Up to you, okay? Now, this is another scene. CCBA, the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, plus all kind of Chinese organizations like Tong Hang Hui, Hometown Association, Clans Association, Zhong Chen Hui, and Tong Hao. You know what Tong Hao Tong was? This is from the predecessor of Chee Kung Tong, dated 1880s from Hanford. We restored it. It's very shabby. And just now I checked. Oh, please check the leadership of Chinese Historical Society. You used to have one of the most invaluable couplets from this Shen Yi Tong, predecessor of Chee Kung Tong in your war. It's the longest. I don't know how they got it from Hanford, but it's there for decades in this building. And see, we have all these videos. We have 13 videos to go with the artifacts, which we think it tells the story. So the one bowl, the bowl of rice is here, and also borrowed from the society pay, and then it comes a reconstructed kind of theater showing the entertainment of the Chinese who are in California. Main entertainment 3 kinds. 睇大戲, watching the Cantonese opera, and you'll be surprised. Besides the troops from Guangzhou and Hong Kong, they have local troops, and they perform very avant-garde operas, including very political scenes. I don't have time. If you have time, I can show you the video. And then the second one, popular, gambling, right? So these, we collect the gambling artifacts from Fiddletown as well as from Hanford, dated as early as 1860s. And then we don't have anything, we couldn't find anything to show you or in the exhibition. Prostitutions. These are the 3 entertainment for Chinese, but don't mistaken. Chinese were fond of gambling and they all go for prostitutes. You remember, in those days, the Chinese who came here, all single young men. And, well, how they release their stress. Thousands away from home, working day and night, hard life. And you remember, gambling, prostitution, even opium were not illegal in the 19th century. US only banned totally opium in 1909. And gambling on and off. But I want to tell you, the one who gambled most was not Chinese, the whites. Sacramento Central Library, the State Library have done a survey and also historical writing about gambling in California in 1995. The article can tell you how the whites were in gambling. We are more discreet. Oh, about Exclusion, I'm writing the book, and the friends from Hanford haven't arrived yet. They kept a photo of a last prostitute in Hanford. So I'm going to put in the book, but I didn't put in the gallery. Okay, the next one, bone repatriation. You know, Chinese people believe falling is returning to their roots. If you die here without anybody to repatriate your bones back to your hometown, you became a wild ghost here. Wild ghost is poor enough, but without generation after generation to worship you. That's the saddest thing in the world. Therefore, this section in historical perspective is the bone repatriation. The Hong Kong Donghua Common Home started from 1899. They assume all the transportation in Hong Kong transship the bones back to China. And they have all these documents in their archive, which was opened in 2003. Therefore, why bone repatriation has become one of the most hottest research topic because of the materials and the original data started to review in 2003. I don't have time to go into bone repatriation, but next time, Victor, Walter, if you invite me, I can give another talk. Because it's so complicated and so meaningful. Okay, now, we work on history, but the museum said it's kind of a little bit gloomy. Can we have a more bright perspective? So we added the last part. That's the cultural trade exchanges between San Francisco, US and Hong Kong. So this is kind of modern. We have the fashion, we have the restaurant, Harbour Village, you remember? We interviewed the Harbour Village and they have closed in 89 something, I don't remember. So this is now this is Mui Yim Fong and Little Mui, and I talk just a little about this because before, now we don't care about the Uyghur, the Chinese Association, right? Nothing to do with us. But in the before 1960s, CCBA and the District Association played an indisposable role for Chinese. But why 1965? Because Chinese got the so-called equal family or immigration quotas by then. And at the same time, now we have friends in the social work area, is the starting of social work studies in this country. Therefore, we have like Pingyuan building, like the Hongji Daiha in New York, the Confucius building, all affordable building. Fort is the result of the, by this Chinese social worker. But before, you have to rely on the Chinese associations. Then, the social work NGO took over the role to take care of the elderly and the disadvantaged Chinese. And they are in San Francisco, the self-help for the elderly was one of the famous ones, right? And then they take over the role of the before when Chinese were discriminated. And then the Hong Kong singer came frequently. Even today we have, I think we have they came here to put on shows, but they would put on one show to help raise funds for these kind of NGOs. So this is the tale. To end our exhibition, this is insisted by me and accepted by the museum. I said I would end this because of the effort of many Chinese leaders in US, organizations, eventually following the Japanese. We have a kind of regret resolution, both in the House and in the Senate. In 2011 and 2012, they passed a similar resolution. I would call it. Some people would not agree. I said they apologize to Chinese. And some people say regret doesn't mean really apologize. But I take it. So this is the ending. And also they recognize in these resolutions, they recognize the contribution, solid, number one, to apologize that with the discriminating laws, Chinese suffer for more than half a century. And then they recognize the real contribution of all the areas that Chinese are contributing. So I don't have time to go into, this is the generic, this is from Chee Kung Tong. We borrowed from the East Asian Library. We have the director at the back. So this is Chee Kung Tong. They are good. They are very good. They donated to okay. So thank East Asian Library, one of our loaners. And then we have 3 special showcase showing the people, showing Chinese, what we call successful Chinese, on what we pick who. Number one is must be historical. We don't want to speak why you pick him, not her. So we have one showcase of businessmen, Chinese merchants, and this is Liu Heng. Roy Hoi, the author of Liu Heng's biography, is here. And thanks to Bruce Guan was see at the back, standing. We borrow all these original documents, certificates, investment, share certificates from the Guan family. Thank you, Bruce. And then besides, I don't have time to go to so many, but we have one Chinese merchant, and we have one Chinese herbal doctor, Sonia Ng, from the Hanford. And in the Sojourning showcase, you find herbs dated 120 years ago. Real thing. And then we have another grocery store owner, Sojourning, and he's related to revolution and something, so I won't go into it. So we have all these rare documents to show, and this is from Chee Kung Tong, right? San Francisco had the great earthquake, and then the fire. The entire Chinatown was gone. So in 1907, Chee Kung Tong, one of the charitable hall, rebuilt their building, and they have the Chinese ambassador inscribed. The banner is so beautiful. So we borrow from that to show. Okay, this I just went through. All right, so this is towards the end of my presentation. Remember in the beginning, I say the third mission, the third perspectives of our exhibition is to show you artifacts, to reveal the real life. We try, okay? So I said the main thing is artifacts that tell stories. Now, you know we have 270 plus artifacts. I cannot elaborate here, unless you stay till midnight tonight, okay? But I want to tell you one story before I conclude. See this guy? Now, I encounter many Chinese here. They say, oh, you know, my great-great-grandfather was a Dai Guan, you know, a high-ranking official in the Qing dynasty. I said, doesn't sound like the first high-ranking court official in San Francisco was the council, Chinese council, not any other Chinese. But why they said so? Because they found all these artifacts and photos of their grandfather wearing Qing official gowns. You know why? In Chinese history, we have a tradition, not only modern. It's from the Han Dynasty. When the government was poor, and when you are rich merchants, you can pay the government some money and buy a title. It's real good, you know, really Chinese official, right? But you don't have any authority, and you don't have any location. You don't have any office. But it's the title. To Chinese is very important. So in the earlier era, when Chinese came to California, the diaspora was seen by the Qing dynasty, you have betrayed us. You just left your nation, right? But then, towards 1870s, money started to be sent back to hometown and contribute to infrastructure. Hey, we should include them. So they started to call them overseas nationalities, all right? Wa-man. And then became Wa-Q, overseas Chinese. And then they started to open the donation or the purchase of official system to overseas Chinese. And many of our Chinese merchants in California, they could afford it. So we have agents in Hong Kong and Shanghai to help you to buy a title. So once they get a title, Hong Kong merchants are smart. They started to produce figurines like this. This is very exotic, very expensive, very rare. But usually you saw them, if you are old enough, in San Francisco when I came in the 1970s, 1980s. You see a lot of these figurines in the Chinatown souvenir store, right? Yeah, because they like to buy one and put it in their store and get the rope from Hong Kong, tailor-made, and take a photo, put it in at home and in their store. So we have 200 plus of these artifacts. Each one will tell a story. Then I complete my presentation by urging you, if you come by Asia, please drop by Hong Kong and visit our gallery. But before I really close, I ask you if you would stay like 3 minutes behind, because I want to show you 2 more. Oh, Arian and Steve, they are from the Hanford Preservation Society. I've been helping them, and they are historians, for more than 20 years. Therefore, we could borrow about 100 items from them. I'm just going to show the film. You want to see the film of the burning? Yeah. And okay. Can anybody concur? So I completed my part.
I know. Our train was delayed.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to show you 2 item. One is the,
Is this the one?
yeah, this, it's okay. This is, you show the dragon. They spent 7 months to restore. And also through the process, now, listen, arrives, this is our laboratory. They have to meticulously measure every element and take pictures, see the condition. And this is the outsourced master, the third generation of the closed Gum Yok Lau paper shop. Because they want to repair and restore the dragon in the real traditional method, not the modern kind. See, that shocked our conservator. Even a decorative flower is 5 layers. It's not drawing on. It's not pasting on. It's the most hard thing. They take out every piece of scale. And it's 5 layers. They have to clean it. Unfortunately, the Marysville people use glue to repair once. They have you use the museum solvents to scrub out all these invasive glue and get it back with the traditional germ rice paste, of course treated to repair them. See how beautiful?
Yeah.
See? Reborn. So a year, and yeah, after is the next one. So after the exhibition, we are going to return the dragon to Bokai Temple. I think people will be stunned. Now this is the burning of Oriental pride. We cried many times. I took these pictures the 3rd day. It's the May 12th of 2021. And Arian called me in the middle of the night when he got, oh, this is Sonia. See, before the restoration, things were burned like this. Now, you know why it's so costly? Because it's artifact. So the box to hold this kind of artifacts is several layers with middle vacuum layers. So a small item like this, the box will be that big, and all airmail. That's international museum standard. They cannot go by sea forwarder. See, they have to clean. This is our conservator in Hong Kong. See, they have to repair. And I think we repair in such manner for over 20 damaged artifacts from Hanford, including the altar. See? So not only that they treat it, repair it, also they use the museum grade to conserve it, so that when we return to Bologna, it can be kept much longer than before we borrow. See, after restoration,
Is that the original frame?
yes, yes. Now, one thing I can tell, because these items, see, just now it's blackened. We cannot repaint it, right? Because it's artifact. At most, we clean like this. And one thing we realize, because these are from temples, most items were contributed by the devotees. So if you go to Guandai temple and say, please give me a baby, and next year you're pregnant, then I would spend as much as I can to get something really good to contribute to the temple. Therefore, we realized, dated in the 18th century, even the wood was burned like this. We have a very good master. Of course, they spend a lot of money. That when they scraped the surface, he was surprised. The wood was not damaged, not even curled, because the wood is so good, including the wooden candle stick, right? Okay, that completes my presentation and video today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia. We're maybe 15, 20 minutes behind schedule. I can take one or two questions because the food is already cold. But you're welcome to stay and come and ask questions. Sonia will stay here for a while to answer your questions. But do go get some food right after this and stay to at least 4:30 if you can. Questions? Any questions? Right here.
I'm curious what author or scholar first used the translation of the word sojourn, because it's not a word heard much in American English, and almost only for this situation.
Oh, in fact, there are quite some scholars use that before. I'm not the first one. Of course, we deliberate a lot, especially for the title is so important. So we don't want like migrant, immigrants to, so we use this. And in fact, the Chinese title is very beautiful. Literal translation is floating in Gold Mountain without roots. A lotus, or I don't know what.
I like the question. There was an issue with even Chinese American scholar to use the word sojourners because the Exclusion Act partially was we're considered sojourners. We didn't plan to stay. It's only maybe the last 10 years that we're more comfortable with that word. For the Chinese, the statistics is we didn't go back to China any more than the British, the Irish. In fact, we were about 40% from what we can dig out in the data. Another question.
What caused the fire? What caused the fire and when was it?
Oh, what caused the fire?
It's a female vagabond, mental disorder with criminal record. One night, the vagabond always stick into the pouch, right, under the coach, and then maybe Ariane can tell you. Ariane is the president of the Hanford China Army Preservation Society. All the way they came, but unfortunately, their train was delayed.
Yeah, just got off the train, by the way. Anyway, the night of the arson, it was a woman, which I understand is unusual for arson, and she was fit enough to withstand trial, except that she was out in China Alley and she had some clothing and she lit her clothing on fire and shoved it under the doorway. So it went up, burned up our stairway and went up to where our altar is on the second floor. And we were this close to losing a whole building because the windows started to break and the oxygen was coming in. But the building is structurally stable, and thanks to Sonia, a lot of our artifacts are being restored. Unfortunately, the arsonist, when she was sentenced, the DA made a deal with her because she had 3 other crimes. She's going to be out in about 45 days.
Yeah, all these heritage sites are at risk. Mocha, New York, they lost about 15% of their collection 4 or 5 years ago. Lighton, BC, there was a Chinese historic site there, wildfire, that was totally gone. And Maui, not that long ago, the Chinese temple there's gone. And even Phil Choi, half of his collection burned about 20 years ago, his home caught on fire. So we have these all the time, floods and so on. So it's important to at least document. Today we're trying to do 3D scanning for all the objects, scan all the artifacts. And our next step will be do LiDAR scanning so we can recreate a place because we'll have all the measurements. So all this work is still there to do. I'm going to close it now for you to go and use the restroom right around the corner. Food is there, Kurt is there with the food, but you can come up here and ask questions of Sonia, Ariane, Steve also, if you so wish. Okay, thank you.